The blow landed before I finished speaking. I remember the exact trajectory of his hand. A backhand, casual, practiced, the kind of motion that comes from having done it before. The sound cracked through the Grand Assembly Hall of the Cygnus Concord like a gunshot in a cathedral. 300 delegations went silent. The translation matrix stuttered and died. No one moved. My name is Sabine Durand. I was 34 years old, Earth's youngest senior ambassador, and I did not fall. High Marshal Thallas of the Carvor Dominion stood over me for a moment, his 7-foot frame blocking the chamber's ambient light. His species had ruled this sector for 6 centuries. Their method was simple: test every newcomer. Push until something breaks. Find the fracture and exploit it. He had done this before, to the Xylans, to the Moratii Compact, to a dozen smaller species whose names now appeared only in footnotes. He returned to his elevated seat. The Carvor gesture for lesson delivered involved folding all 4 arms across the chest. He performed it slowly, deliberately, for the cameras. I straightened my jacket. I touched my lower lip. Blood, warm and copper-tasting. The chamber watched. 300 species, 42 civilizations, all waiting to see what the human would do. What I did was press my earpiece. The channel was encrypted, routed through 7 relays, keyed to my biometric signature. I spoke one word: activate. Then I gathered my notes, requested a recess, and walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind me, I heard the buzz of confused translators, the shuffle of delegates rising, the low murmur of 1,000 conversations beginning. They thought I had accepted the blow. They thought humanity had been tested and found wanting. They were wrong about what silence means. My aide, a young man named Kalen Shaw, fell into step beside me in the corridor. His face was pale. "Ambassador, what just happened?" "What needed to happen?" I said. "Send a message to Admiral Torres. Tell him Ember Protocol is active. He'll understand." Kalen didn't ask what Ember Protocol was. He had learned, over 18 months at my side, not to ask questions whose answers he wasn't cleared for. We walked to our quarters. I sat down at my desk, opened a sealed folder I had carried from Earth, and read the first page. It contained a single sentence, written in Ambassador Harlan Price's unmistakable handwriting: "They will test you. When they do, remember, we have been waiting longer than they know." I folded the page and put it in my pocket. Then I opened my encrypted channel to Earth and waited for the machine to begin. Admiral Elena Torres received my message at 0347 Geneva time. She was in the underground command center beneath the Swiss Alps, a facility that did not appear on any public map. The room was circular, dimly lit, filled with screens showing fleet positions across 17 systems. 37 commanders stood ready. They had been standing ready for 11 years. Torres read the word, "activate," and nodded once. She had known this day would come. Every exercise, every simulation, every sleepless night of contingency planning had been building toward this single moment. She picked up a red phone that connected to every human fleet unit in known space. "All hands," she said. "Doctrine Ember is live. Execute Operation Silent Hammer. Coordinates as filed. No communications outside the fleet. No exceptions." Across the galaxy, human warships began to move. They emerged from hidden shipyards on the dark sides of moons, from caverns carved into asteroids, from the depths of gas giants where they had been sitting dormant for years. Each ship had its orders preloaded, its targets preselected, its legal justification pre-filed with the Concord's own archive. Nothing was left to chance. I learned all of this later. At the time, sitting in my quarters on Cygnus Station, I knew only that the signal had been sent and that the machine was now running. 3 days passed. I attended every Concord session. I smiled at the Carvor delegation. I made polite conversation about trade routes and resource allocations. High Marshal Thallas watched me constantly, looking for the crack he believed he had created. He saw nothing. That worried him more than if I had screamed. On the 4th day, I requested a private meeting with Thallas. He accepted. Arrogance required it. We met in a small chamber overlooking the station's central ring. He sat in a chair built for his scale. I stood. "I have a document for you," I said, placing a folder on the table between us. "It contains 3 things. First, a formal legal complaint under Concord Article 19, documenting your assault. Second, a complete inventory of human military assets currently positioned around your 17 systems. Third, a choice. He did not open the folder. His 4 arms remained crossed. Your choice, I said, is simple. Issue a public apology. Acknowledge human sovereign equality. Or refuse, and accept the consequences. He laughed. It was a dry, grinding sound. You have no fleet, Ambassador. You have nothing. Open the folder, I said. He opened the folder. He read. His arms slowly uncrossed. The chamber was very quiet. Outside, the stars turned, indifferent and bright. Thallus read for 4 minutes. I counted. His expression shifted through stages I had learned to recognize from months of studying carnivore physiology, first dismissive, then puzzled, then still. That stillness was the most telling. It is the look of a predator realizing the prey has teeth it did not account for. This is impossible, he said finally. Your fleet numbers. Your weapons capabilities. Your positioning. He tapped the page with one clawed finger. You cannot have built this without us knowing. We did, I said. For 11 years. While you watched our diplomatic sessions. While you dismissed our trade delegations. While you laughed at our young species and its eager ambassadors. We built exactly what you see there. He pushed the folder back across the table. Even if this is accurate, and I do not concede that it is, you would not fire. You are diplomats. You are here to talk. I picked up the folder. I met his eyes. Hi, Marshal, I am going to tell you something true. Humanity has been talking for 30 years. We have been patient. We have accepted the small insults, the unequal treaties, the condescension of older species who believe age confers wisdom rather than just age. We did that because we wanted to belong. We wanted a seat at the table. I stepped closer. He did not step back. But we also understood something that older species forget, I said. Belonging must be mutual. Respect must be earned on both sides. And when a line is crossed, when one of our own is struck in open session, in front of 300 delegations, the patience ends. You are threatening me. I am informing you. The difference matters. The door opened behind me. Kalen entered, his face carefully neutral. Ambassador, Admiral Torres reports all units in position. She awaits your final authorization. I did not look away from Thallus. You have 48 hours. Public apology. Sovereign equality. Or the coordinates in that folder become impact sites. Not a single civilian target. Every military asset you possess, precisely and systematically removed. The choice is yours. I turned and walked out. In the corridor, Kalen exhaled shakily. Did he? He will consult his admirals, I said. They will tell him the numbers are real. Then he will decide what kind of leader he is. And if he chooses wrong? I stopped at the window. Cygnus Station's rings caught the distant starlight, silver and ancient. Then humanity stops asking for a seat at the table, and builds its own. 38 hours later, I received Thallus's response. It came not through diplomatic channels, but through a back channel, a runner, a young carnivore aide who slipped the folded note into Kalen's hand during a session break. The paper was heavy, textured, the kind used for formal declarations. The message was 7 words. We will not apologize. We will not forget. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in my jacket pocket, next to Harlan Price's handwritten page. Kalen watched me, his face pale but steady. Ambassador. He has made his choice, I said. Open a channel to Admiral Torres. Full encryption. The call connected 90 seconds later. Elena Torres's face appeared on my tablet, weathered, calm, the face of someone who had been waiting 11 years for a single conversation. Behind her, I could see the glow of the command center screens, the movement of officers running their stations. Ambassador, she said, I'm told we have a decision. He refused, I said. Full public apology off the table. Sovereign equality denied. He walked past the door. Torres was quiet for a moment. Then, Orders. I looked out the window at Cygnus Station's silver rings. Somewhere in this vast structure, Thales was sitting in his elevated seat, surrounded by his advisors, his generals, his certainty. He believed humanity would blink. He believed the young species would flinch at the edge of the abyss. He had never read our history. He had never seen what we do when our backs are against a wall. Execute Operation Silent Hammer, I said. Full documentation. Every action recorded and filed with the Concorde archive in real time. No civilian targets. No unnecessary force. But every military asset in Carvor space, every single one, is to be rendered non-operational within 72 hours. Can you do that? Torres almost smiled. Ambassador, we planned for 96 hours. 72 is ambitious, but we've been ambitious before. Then do it. And Admiral. Yes. When it's done, send Thales the full record. Every timestamp. Every legal citation. Every justification. Let him see exactly how carefully we built this. I ended the call. Kalen stood behind me, silent. I turned to face him. Prepare a statement for the Concorde, I said. Not yet. When the first reports start coming in. Then we speak. What will we say? I thought about it. About the blow that had landed before I finished speaking. About the blood on my lip. About 11 years of patience that had finally, at last, run out. We will say that humanity asked for a seat at the table. And when the table struck us, we built our own. The operation lasted 69 hours. When it was finished, the Carvor Dominion's military capacity was gone, not destroyed, not shattered, but surgically removed. Every command relay, every weapons platform, every supply depot that served their war machine had been hit with precision that the Concorde's observers called unprecedented. The human fleet lost 12 ships. 12, against 17 systems of entrenched defenses. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Thales did not sleep during those 69 hours. I know this because the Concorde's medical monitors tracked his vitals through his delegation's biometric feeds. His heart rate remained elevated for the entire duration. He watched his empire crumble on real-time displays, and he could do nothing. His admirals had told him the numbers were real. He had chosen not to believe them. On the 70th hour, he requested a meeting. No conditions. No posturing. Just a request. I met him in the same small chamber where I had given him the folder. He looked diminished, not physically, but something behind his eyes had changed. The certainty was gone. In its place was something rawer. Your fleet, he said. Your weapons. Your positioning. It was all real. It was all real, I said. And it was all documented. Every action, every target, every legal justification. Filed with the Concorde archive. Witnessed by the Saline Accord. Permanent, verifiable, and undeniable. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you want? Public apology. Acknowledgement of human sovereign equality. Your military infrastructure placed under Concorde oversight for 10 years. And the Charter amended to make diplomatic personhood inviolable for every species, not just humans. That is surrender. It is accountability, I said. There is a difference. He signed the agreement 24 hours later. The Concorde ratified it unanimously. The Carvor Dominion, for the first time in 6 centuries, was no longer the dominant power in its sector. Humanity, for the first time ever, had a permanent seat at the head of the table. I returned to Earth on a clear morning. The sky was blue. The air smelled of grass and rain. My mother was waiting at the landing field. She did not ask about the battle or the politics. She just held me for a long time. Harlan Price met me at the Institute the next day. He was older now, walking with a cane, but his eyes were the same, sharp, patient, seeing everything. You carried us well, he said. I tried, I said. The record is clean. The precedent is set. The door is open for whoever comes next. He nodded slowly. And Thales. I thought about the moment in the chamber, the blow, the silence, the blood on my lip. I thought about the 69 hours of war and the 72nd hour of surrender. I thought about the weight of what we had done, and the weight of what we had to carry forward. "He will remember," I said. "They all will." The galaxy did not end that week. Empires did not fall in flames. What happened was quieter and more permanent. A line was drawn. And the line held. That, I think, is what victory looks like when you are not trying to conquer, only to be seen, to be counted, and never to be struck again. A year later, I returned to Cygnus Station. Not as a supplicant, not as a newcomer seeking approval. I walked into the Grand Assembly Hall as the senior human ambassador, past delegations that now rose when I entered, past the seat where Thalys had once sat above me. The chamber had been redesigned. No elevated rows. Every delegation at the same level. The Carvor had requested the change themselves. Thalys was there. He did not meet my eyes, but he inclined his head, the Carvor gesture for acknowledgment between equals. I returned it. The session that day was about trade lanes. Boring. Administrative. Perfect. Because that is what peace looks like when it works. Not dramatic, not heroic, just people in a room solving problems. Afterward, a young delegate from a newly arrived species approached me. She was nervous, her hands trembling slightly. She represented a civilization that had achieved faster-than-light travel only 20 years ago. She had read about what happened here. "Ambassador Durand," she said, "how did you do it? How did you make them listen?" I looked at her. She reminded me of myself, once. Young. Eager. Afraid. "We built," I said, quietly, "for 11 years. Ships, alliances, legal frameworks. We built until no one could ignore us. Then, when they struck us, we showed them what we had built, not in anger, but in documentation. Every action recorded. Every justification filed. Every move legal, precise, and undeniable." She nodded slowly. "So it wasn't the ships that won?" "The ships helped," I said, and she almost smiled. "But what won was the record. The fact that when it was over, no one could argue with what we had done or why. Precedent, young ambassador. That is what lasts." She thanked me and walked away. I watched her go, thinking about the next young species, and the next, and the one after that. The galaxy is vast and old and full of powers that have forgotten what it means to be small. Someone needs to remind them. Someone needs to keep the door open. I touched my pocket. Inside was Harlan Price's handwritten page, now soft from being folded and refolded. The ink had faded, but the words remained. "They will test you. When they do, remember, we have been waiting longer than they know." I walked to the observation window. The rings caught the light, silver and beautiful. The stars beyond were unchanged, indifferent, eternal. Somewhere in the darkness, human ships patrolled quietly, maintaining the peace we had built. And somewhere on Earth, my mother was tending her garden, not thinking about empires or ambassadors or the weight of history. I smiled. The work continues. But tonight, I was going home.